She was smiling when she stole my package. And 5 minutes later, she was screaming that I was the thief. That single moment exploded into the wildest HOA nightmare of my life. And if you've ever dealt with a Karen, you already know how fast normal can turn into chaos. It started on a quiet weekday afternoon, the kind where nothing ever happens. I work from home, my window faces the front yard, and I always hear delivery trucks. That day, I heard the familiar stop, the door slide, and the soft thud of a box hitting my porch. I checked the tracking number on my phone and smiled. My package had arrived early. Before I could even stand up, I noticed movement on my security camera app. My neighbor, the HOA's unofficial enforcer, walked straight onto my porch. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. She picked up my package, looked directly into the camera, and walked away like it belonged to her. Calm, confident, shameless. I rushed outside, but she was already gone. I knocked on her door. No answer. I texted the HOA group chat, asking if anyone had accidentally picked up my delivery. Within seconds, she replied. Not with an apology, not with confusion. She said the package was hers and accused me of trying to steal it from her porch. I was stunned. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was a bold lie. I replied calmly, explaining the address, the name, the tracking proof. She fired back instantly, claiming I was harassing her and threatening to call the police if I didn't stop stealing. Neighbors started watching from their windows. Phones came out. Tension spread down the street like smoke. I realized then this wasn't just about a box anymore. This was about control, ego, and someone who never expected to be challenged. What happened next escalated faster than I could imagine, and it would expose everything she didn't want anyone to see. I stood there replaying the footage, heart pounding, realizing how calculated she was. This wasn't impulse or confusion. It was confidence built on never being questioned. The camera saw everything, yet she acted untouchable. I backed up the video, saved screenshots, and prepared myself mentally. I knew confronting her would mean escalation, drama, and lies stacked on lies. But staying silent would mean surrender. Somewhere between anger and disbelief. I decided I wouldn't let her rewrite reality. I would stay calm, stick to facts, and let her dig her own hole in front of witnesses who were already watching closely. The stage was set, and the street felt smaller, quieter, waiting for the inevitable explosion everyone sensed was coming. And no one was prepared for it. I didn't wait long before things got worse. Less than 10 minutes after her message in the HOA chat, I heard her front door slam. I looked up and saw her marching toward my house, phone in hand, already recording. Her face wasn't confused or defensive. It was angry, rehearsed, like she'd practiced this confrontation in her head. She stopped at the edge of my driveway and shouted loud enough for half the street to hear. She accused me of stealing packages, stalking her porch, and harassing her online. Every word was louder than the last. Neighbors stepped outside, pretending to check mail while clearly watching. She wanted an audience. I calmly told her the package had my name and address, and that my security camera recorded her taking it. That's when she laughed. A sharp, dismissive laugh. She said cameras can be edited and accused me of faking footage to frame her. Then she raised her phone higher and announced she was calling the police because she felt threatened. The situation flipped instantly. Now, I was the criminal in her story. I could see how easily she twisted facts, how confident she was that authority would automatically believe her. I told her to go ahead and call. I welcomed it. That surprised her for half a second, just enough for me to notice. While she was on the phone, exaggerating everything, I pulled up the footage on my tablet. Clear video, clear timestamp, clear view of her face. I sent a message to the HOA group chat stating I had proof and would share it if needed. That's when the chat went silent. She ended the call and smirked, telling me officers were on the way. She warned me to get my story straight. I replied that I didn't need a story, just the truth. That irritated her more than yelling ever could. A patrol car arrived within minutes. 2 officers stepped out, calm but alert. She rushed to them first, crying now, claiming she was being harassed by a neighbor who kept stealing her deliveries. The performance was dramatic, complete with shaking hands and a cracked voice. It was convincing, until it was my turn. I showed the officers the footage without saying much. I let the video speak. I watched their expressions change as they replayed it twice. The confidence she had moments earlier started to crumble. She interrupted, protested, and accused me again. But the officers raised a hand and told her to wait. That's when the truth began taking control of the situation, and the balance shifted in a way she never expected. The officers asked her a simple question. Is that you in the video? For the first time since this started, she didn't answer immediately. She leaned closer to the tablet, squinting as if pretending not to recognize herself. She claimed the footage was blurry, that it could be anyone, that maybe someone edited her face onto another person's body. Her voice lost its confidence, rising slightly. Faster now. The officers exchanged a look. They'd heard this kind of deflection before. I stayed quiet. That silence worked in my favor. The longer she talked, the worse it sounded. One officer asked if she currently had the package in question. She said no, claimed she never touched it. Then she slipped and said she might have moved it for safety. The contradiction hung in the air. The officer gently reminded her she'd already stated she never took it. She backtracked, stumbled over words, then snapped that she didn't need to explain herself to anyone. That's when the second officer asked if they could step inside her home to clear things up. Her face went pale. She refused immediately. Too quickly. Said she knew her rights. Said this was harassment. But her hands were shaking, and she kept glancing toward her front door. Neighbors had fully gathered now, whispering, watching. The quiet street felt tense, like everyone was holding their breath. The officers explained they didn't need to enter if she simply returned the package. She snapped back that she didn't have it. I calmly said the box contained a unique item with my name printed on the label and inside. That detail mattered. The officers asked her again, slower this time. Finally, with a frustrated sigh, she turned and stomped inside her house. A minute passed. Then 2. The murmurs from neighbors grew louder. When she came back out, she was holding my package. Opened. Tape ripped. Contents disturbed. She shoved it toward the officers, claiming she only opened it by mistake. That was another lie. The label was clear. My address. My name. The officer pointed that out. She crossed her arms and muttered that anyone could make a label. That's when the officer told her she'd be receiving a warning for theft and false reporting. Her eyes went wide. She started shouting, saying this was unfair, that I manipulated everyone, that the HOA would hear about this. The performance collapsed into pure rage. The officer calmly shut it down. One more outburst, he said, and it would escalate further. She fell silent, seething, humiliated in front of the entire street. I took my package back, heart still racing, knowing this wasn't over yet. Karen never lets go easily, and what she did next would prove that. I thought the nightmare was finally over when the police left. But Karen wasn't finished. Not even close. As soon as the patrol car disappeared down the street, she turned her anger fully toward me. Her face twisted with humiliation, and I could tell she was already planning her next move. Within an hour, my phone started buzzing non-stop. HOA emails, group chat messages, formal-looking notices. She had filed an official complaint claiming I harassed her, invaded her privacy with illegal cameras, and caused emotional distress. She demanded fines, penalties, and even requested I be forced to remove my security system. It was revenge, plain and simple. I read every message carefully, forcing myself to stay calm. This was exactly what she wanted. Panic, reaction, mistakes. Instead, I responded once, briefly, stating I had police documentation, video evidence, and witnesses. Then I stopped engaging. That silence drove her crazy. By the next morning, neighbors started reaching out privately. People I barely spoke to before apologized for not intervening sooner. One sent me a video they recorded of her yelling at the officers. Another admitted she'd taken packages before and returned them later, when confronted. A pattern was forming, and it wasn't in her favor. The HOA scheduled an emergency meeting. Karen showed up early, sitting front and center like she was ready for battle. She spoke first, of course. She cried again, accused again, painted herself as the victim of a personal attack. But this time, she wasn't the only one with a story. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I presented the timeline, the footage, the police warning, the open package. Then something unexpected happened. 3 neighbors spoke up, one by one, calmly, clearly. They shared similar experiences, missing items, confrontations, intimidation. Karen's authority crumbled in real time. The HOA board went quiet. They asked her questions she couldn't answer without contradicting herself. Her anger flared, and she started shouting again, accusing everyone of ganging up on her. That outburst sealed it. The board issued her a formal violation for theft-related behavior and abuse of HOA power. More violations would mean fines or removal from her position. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled the room. The silence afterward felt unreal. For the first time since moving there, the street felt lighter. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. Karen still had one final desperate move left, one that would completely backfire and change her reputation forever. Karen disappeared for a few days after the HOA meeting, and honestly, that silence was unsettling. With someone like her, quiet never means peace. It means planning. I went back to my routine, but I stayed alert, checking my cameras more often, saving footage, documenting everything. Something told me this story wasn't finished yet. Then it happened. Late one evening, I received a notification from my door camera. Karen was back on my porch. This time, she wasn't stealing anything. She was posting notices. Official-looking papers taped to my door, claiming HOA violations, fines, and legal threats. Completely fake. Completely unauthorized. She even took photos, probably to prove she'd done her job. I forwarded the footage straight to the HOA board and the police non-emergency line. I didn't confront her. I didn't message her. I let the evidence do the talking again. Less than an hour later, an officer showed up at her house. Then another. Neighbors gathered, pretending not to stare, but everyone was watching. She tried the same routine: denial, outrage, victimhood, but it didn't work anymore. The officer explained that impersonating HOA authority and posting fraudulent notices crossed a legal line. Combined with the previous incident, this wasn't just neighborhood drama, this was a pattern. She was issued a citation on the spot. A real one. The kind that can't be argued away in a group chat. Her voice cracked. Not with anger this time, but fear. She realized she'd pushed too far and everyone had seen it. The next week, the HOA announced her removal from any leadership role. No vote needed. Too many complaints. Too much proof. Neighbors who once avoided conflict now openly talked about what she'd done. Her reputation collapsed faster than it was built. A month later, her house went up for sale. The street changed after that. People waved. Packages stayed where they belonged. Cameras remained. But the tension was gone. All because one person finally said no and backed it with facts instead of fear. That stolen package taught me something important. Karens thrive on silence and intimidation. The moment you document, stay calm, and stand your ground, their power vanishes. She tried to steal my property, my voice, and my credibility. She failed at all three, and every time I see a delivery truck now I smile. Not because of what's inside the box, but because I know exactly what to do if anyone ever tries that again. If you felt the heat of this story, hit like. Because real victories start when we stand together. Subscribe to Karen Story Hub to follow every jaw-dropping moment from my Karen files. And tell me below, how would you handle a Karen trying to control your life?